What if I told you that the most powerful pharmacy ever assembled isn't a modern hospital or a drugstore, but a collection of ancient foods and herbs commanded by God, validated by Scripture, and now proven by modern clinical science to heal your body from the inside out? Most people don't know this, but while we're chasing synthetic pills and fad diets, the genuine medicine our bodies were designed to thrive on has been sitting in plain sight for thousands of years. This isn't folklore, it's documented physiology. I've gone deep into the research, and what I've found is nothing short of extraordinary. Stick around because number 13 on this list was so potent and sacred that it was traded as currency by kings. And number 20 is a forgotten desert food that modern science now shows can literally speed up childbirth and smooth labor. Before we get into this countdown, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell. We're uncovering the ancient remedies that modern science is only just beginning to understand. And you don't want to miss a single revelation. Here are 25 biblical superfoods ranked from profoundly nourishing to absolutely life-altering. Number 25, coriander seed, the divine detoxifier. When the Israelites wandered in the wilderness, God provided manna. And the book of Exodus tells us it looked like coriander seed, white, and tasted like wafers made with honey. This wasn't a random comparison. The ancient world knew coriander seed as a sacred digestive and cleansing agent. And modern science has caught up in a stunning way. Clinical research has identified that coriander seed possesses genuine anxiolytic effects, meaning it can actively calm the mind and reduce anxiety at a neurological level. It's loaded with powerful anti-inflammatory compounds, but here's the truly remarkable part. Studies suggest that coriander seed may help mobilize heavy metals like mercury and lead from tissues, acting as a gentle, natural chelator that binds to these toxins and escorts them out of your body. Think of it as a deep internal cleanse that also settles your racing thoughts. The seeds themselves are small, ridged, and carry a warm, citrusy aroma that fills the kitchen when you crush them between your fingers. Here's the traditional use. The seeds were chewed slowly after meals to freshen breath and aid digestion, or steeped into a warm tea by pouring boiling water over a teaspoon of lightly crushed seeds and letting them infuse for 10 minutes to calm an upset stomach and soothe the nerves. We abandon this for breath mints and antacids, forgetting that God provided a seed that detoxifies the body while calming the soul. Number 24, pistachios, the sacred site guardians. These were considered luxury foods for biblical patriarchs, a gift fit for royalty, carried by Jacob's sons into Egypt as a precious offering during the famine. They weren't just a tasty snack, they were a concentrated source of rare, eye-protecting power. Modern nutritional science reveals that pistachios are uniquely high in lutein and zeaxanthin, two carotenoids that are absolutely critical for protecting your eyes from blue light damage and age-related macular degeneration. These compounds literally accumulate in the macula of your retina, forming a protective shield against the constant assault of screens and sunlight. But the healing doesn't stop at your vision. Pistachios are a prebiotic powerhouse, and clinical studies show their fiber content significantly increases beneficial gut bacteria like the lactobacillus and bifidobacterium species. Your gut, your eyes, your brain, all fed by a single nut that cracks open with a satisfying pop to reveal its green and purple kernel. Here's the traditional use. They were eaten raw, straight from the shell as a slow, mindful food that provided sustained energy and sharp mental clarity. The act of shelling them one by one forces you to slow down, to be present with your food. The modern world has given us screens that destroy our eyes and processed snacks that destroy our gut. The ancient world gave us pistachios. The real question is, which wisdom will you follow today? Number 23, almonds, the patriarch's energy bar. We find almonds woven into one of the most dramatic stories in the book of Numbers. When Aaron's rod miraculously budded, blossomed, and produced ripe almonds overnight as a sign of divine authority. The almond was a symbol of watchfulness and life, springing from what seemed dead. And the nutritional profile of this nut is a genuine miracle of density. Almonds are exceptionally rich in vitamin E, a fat-soluble antioxidant that protects your cell membranes from oxidative damage. And magnesium, a mineral that over half of modern people are deficient in, which governs over 300 enzymatic reactions in your body, including muscle relaxation and sleep regulation. Clinical trials consistently demonstrate that regular almond consumption lowers LDL cholesterol, reduces the blood sugar spike after a meal, and even improves the diversity of your gut microbiome. I remember the first time I soaked almonds overnight and peeled off their skins, revealing the plump, creamy white kernel underneath, almost alive, ready to deliver its full potential. Here's the traditional use. Almonds were soaked overnight in water to activate their enzymes, and then eaten with a pinch of salt, a practice that neutralizes phytic acid and makes their nutrients explosively available. Think of them as the original energy bar, designed not in a factory but by the creator for sustained, clean-burning fuel that doesn't come wrapped in plastic. Number 22. Onions, the humble underground warrior. When the Israelites cried out in the wilderness, they didn't just miss the meat of Egypt. They specifically lamented the loss of the onions, leeks, and garlic they had eaten freely. At first glance, it seems strange to weep over a bulb. But the ancient Egyptians understood what we have forgotten. Onions are not merely flavor. They are a reservoir of quercetin, one of the most studied polyphenols on the planet. Quercetin is a natural antihistamine, meaning it can help calm allergic reactions and systemic inflammation. It also acts as a powerful antioxidant, scavenging free radicals before they can damage your cells. Perhaps most critically for our modern, gut-compromised world, onions are bursting with inulin-type fructans, prebiotic fibers that literally feed your beneficial gut bacteria. They don't just pass through. They ferment and nourish, creating a thriving ecosystem in your colon. The sharp, tear-inducing compounds that make you cry when you slice into a raw onion are the very same sulfur compounds that give it its medicinal punch. Here's the traditional use. A sliced raw onion was placed in a bowl of water overnight, and the resulting infusion was sipped throughout the next day to break up chest congestion and soothe a raw, inflamed throat. Think of it as a maintenance crew for your immune system, working underground, silently in the dark, just waiting for you to dig it up. Number 21. Carob, the locust bean of the wilderness. Scripture tells us that John the Baptist's food in the wilderness was locusts and wild honey. For centuries, readers pictured the insect, but a deeper dive into linguistic and historical evidence points to something far more nourishing. The locust bean, which we know today as carob. This was the survival food of prophets, and its nutritional profile explains why. Carob pods are unique, containing natural sugars for energy, alongside up to 40% dietary fiber by weight, making them a profound gut regulator. They don't spike your blood sugar like processed chocolate, they stabilize it. Carob also contains condensed tannins, specifically proanthocyanidins, which have documented powerful antimicrobial and antidiarrheal effects. It's a gentle, effective remedy for an out-of-control digestive system. The pods themselves hang from the tree like dark, leathery ornaments. And when you break one open, it releases a sweet, almost chocolatey aroma that feels grounding and ancient. Here's the traditional use. The dried pods were ground into a fine, molasses-like powder and mixed with water to create a thick, soothing drink that would stop diarrhea and restore electrolyte balance. We replaced this with sugary sports drinks and chemical thickeners. John the Baptist survived on a pod that heals the gut lining, and we forgot it even existed. Number 20. Dates, the divine delivery fruit. The Israelites missed them in the wilderness, and the palm tree was carved into Solomon's temple as a symbol of righteousness. But there is a clinical revelation about dates that is so stunning it should shake the foundation of modern obstetrics. Rigorous clinical trials have found that women who consume dates daily in the final weeks of pregnancy experience significantly faster and smoother deliveries. They have a higher cervical dilation upon admission, a reduced need for medical induction, and a shorter active labor phase. How? Dates provide a perfect matrix of natural glucose and fructose for rapid energy, bound tightly with fiber, magnesium, potassium, and copper. They don't just fuel the muscles. They seem to prime the uterus by influencing oxytocin receptor sensitivity. A ripe medjool date, soft and glistening with its own natural syrup, is one of the most satisfying foods on Earth. And it turns out it's also one of the most strategically brilliant. Here's the traditional use. 6 to 7 medjool or smaller deglet, nor dates were eaten daily as a full-body preparation for the marathon of childbirth. A word of caution: dates are still high in natural sugar. So if you are not pregnant or an active individual, enjoy them in moderation. A couple at a time, not the whole box. This isn't superstition. It's a randomized clinical trial-backed ancient obstetric tool. Think of it as the creator's birthing plan: sweet, sticky, and scientifically undeniable. Number 19. Ancient grains, the original unbroken wheat. When we read about bread in the Bible, we are not reading about the bleached, hybridized 42-chromosome wheat that lines grocery store shelves today. The bread that Jesus broke was einkorn and emmer, ancient species with a completely different genetic structure. Einkorn has a fragile gluten network that is radically more digestible for the human body. Modern science has revealed that slow-fermented sourdough made with these ancient grains actively breaks down the gluten proteins and phytic acid that cause so many people digestive distress and mineral deficiencies today. This was the daily bread, the staff of life, and it was prepared with a wisdom we abandon for speed. The dough would sit in a wooden bowl covered with a cloth, slowly bubbling and coming alive with wild yeasts, developing a tangy, complex aroma that signaled the transformation was underway. Here's the traditional use. The grain was stone ground, mixed with water, and left open to the wild yeasts in the air, fermenting for a full day or more before being baked into a dense, life-giving loaf. The fermentation process pre-digested the grain for you. Think of it as the difference between a living food and a dead one. We chose the dead one because it was faster, and our guts have been paying the price ever since. Number 18. Grapes, the blood of the vine. The vine is the ultimate biblical symbol of connection and life, and the fruit it bears is a pharmacological marvel. The skin of the grape, the part we often discard or process out, is loaded with resveratrol, quercetin, and anthocyanins. These polyphenols have been studied extensively for their effects on cardiovascular health, systemic inflammation, and even longevity pathways. Resveratrol specifically activates sirtuins, a class of proteins associated with cellular repair and extended lifespan in laboratory models. And there's a practical, ancient use that demonstrates an intuitive grasp of microbiology. Diluted wine mixed with water was a daily drink because it possessed potent antimicrobial properties. Modern lab tests confirm it can kill common gut pathogens like E. coli and salmonella, effectively purifying water in a time before chlorine. The deep purple stain of a crushed grape on your fingers is the visible evidence of those protective anthocyanins. Here's the traditional use. A small amount of dark, unprocessed wine was mixed with clean water and consumed with meals to protect against foodborne illness. They knew it worked, now we know why. Number 17, goat's milk, the mother's backup. The land of promise was repeatedly described as a land flowing with milk and honey, and much of that milk came from the goat. Goat's milk was the backbone of biblical nutrition, and for a physiological reason that modern allergy science is just beginning to grasp. The fat globules in goat's milk are naturally smaller than those in cow's milk, making the entire emulsion easier and faster for the human digestive system to break down. More importantly, goat's milk is predominantly composed of A2-casein protein, which lacks the inflammatory opioid peptide BCM7 that is produced during the digestion of common A1 cow's milk and is linked to gut inflammation and brain fog in sensitive individuals. Fresh goat's milk has a creamy, slightly sweet taste, nothing like the strong flavor people associate with it today, which comes from poor handling and confinement. Here's the traditional use. Fresh, unpasteurized goat's milk was consumed raw or cultured into a thick, yogurt-like substance called leaven, teeming with beneficial bacteria and enzymes. Think of it as nature's most complete food, designed to be gentle on a child's stomach and nourishing for an adult's bones. Number 16, Lentils, the humble red stew. Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of red lentil stew. We mock him, we call him foolish and short-sighted, but Esau wasn't foolish. He was a hunter, exhausted, on the verge of collapse, and he knew exactly what that steaming bowl of red pottage contained. Lentils are one of the densest plant-based sources of protein on Earth, packing 18 grams of complete building blocks per cooked cup, along with massive doses of iron, folate, zinc, magnesium, and potassium. They have a uniquely low glycemic index, meaning they provide hours of steady energy without the blood sugar crash that follows refined grains. They literally bring a depleted body back from the brink. I can picture him, hands trembling from hunger, inhaling the earthy, savory steam rising from that clay bowl, knowing that every spoonful was restoring strength to his failing body. Here's the traditional use. Lentils were soaked and slow-cooked into a thick, savory stew, a process that modern science shows reduces anti-nutrients like phytic acid and dramatically improves mineral absorption. Esau wasn't trading his future for a snack. He was trading it for a recovery meal, so powerful it felt like life returning to his limbs. The real question is, why aren't you eating it every week? Number 15, fatty fish. The Galilean brain food. The earliest disciples were fishermen on the Sea of Galilee, and a significant portion of their diet consisted of small, oily fish like sardines and anchovies. We tend to view these as pizza toppings, but in the biblical context, they were a primary source of the most critical structural fat for the human brain. Omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA. These aren't optional. Your brain is physically made of DHA. Regular consumption of these fish is robustly associated with lower rates of cardiovascular disease, a dramatic reduction in systemic inflammation, and a deceleration of cognitive decline and depression. The ancient diet didn't have a mental health crisis because it was built on a foundation of brain-specific nutrition. Picture Peter hauling in a net glistening with silver, flipping fish, their scales catching the morning sun over the Galilee, knowing this catch would feed minds as much as bellies. Here's the traditional use. Small fish were salted, dried in the sun, and eaten whole, bones and all, providing a complete matrix of omega-3s, calcium, and vitamin D that is virtually impossible to replicate with a supplement. Think of it as a structural repair kit for the synapses in your brain, delivered fresh from the lake. Number 14, cumin, the black seed of digestion. The prophet Isaiah speaks of the careful, deliberate planting and thrashing of cumin, a spice so valuable it required specific, gentle treatment. This wasn't just about flavoring bread. Cumin contains a bioactive compound called cuminaldehyde, which has demonstrated powerful antimicrobial effects against a broad spectrum of bacteria and fungi. But the modern clinical evidence goes even deeper into metabolic health. Studies show that cumin can genuinely lower fasting blood sugar and improve insulin sensitivity in people struggling with type 2 diabetes. The seeds are tiny, elongated, and carry a warm, peppery, slightly bitter fragrance that intensifies when you toast them in a dry pan, releasing their volatile oils into the air. Here's the traditional use. A pinch of cumin seeds was chewed slowly before a heavy meal, or a strong tea was brewed from the seeds to stop bloating, gas, and cramping. We have replaced this with chalky tablets and prescription proton pump inhibitors. The ancient world had a spice that lit a fire under a sluggish digestion and starved out the bad bugs, all while lowering blood sugar. Think of it as a metabolic reset button, hidden in your spice rack, gathering dust. Number 13, frankincense, the anxiolytic resin of the temple. This is the item that was so rare and prized in biblical times that kings literally traded it like currency. It was one of the 3 gifts presented to the Christ child, a gift recognizing divinity, and it was commanded by God to be burned perpetually in the holy place. It wasn't just a pleasant smell, it was a neurochemical intervention. Modern clinical research has isolated the psychoactive compounds in frankincense, specifically insensol acetate, and found that it activates ion channels in the brain that calm anxiety at a neurological level. It literally alters your brain chemistry towards peace. The smoke from the burning resin has been shown to possess antidepressant and anxiolytic effects in laboratory settings. The resin itself appears as pale, golden tears, crystallized on the bark of the Boswellia tree. And when you place a piece on a hot coal, it releases a sweet, woody, citrusy smoke that seems to slow down time itself. Here's the traditional use. The resin was burned, and the smoke was deeply inhaled as a form of aromatherapy that quieted the mind and prepared the spirit for prayer and meditation. Think of it as a sacred, airborne nerve shield, an ancient anti-anxiety treatment that doesn't numb you but elevates you. Number 12, bitter herbs, the commanded cleanse. In Exodus 12:8, God commanded the Israelites to eat the Passover lamb with bitter herbs. This was a non-negotiable ritual, a memorial of suffering. But God never commands something arbitrary. The bitter herbs, such as chicory, dandelion, and endive, are pharmacologically designed to trigger the entire digestive cascade. The bitter taste on your tongue sends an immediate signal via the vagus nerve to your liver and gallbladder, screaming at them to release bile. This primes your entire system to break down fats and absorb fat-soluble vitamins. It also detoxifies. Bitter compounds stimulate the migrating motor complex, the wave that sweeps debris and bad bacteria through your gut. The taste is sharp, almost unpleasant at first, a jolt to the senses that wakes up a system grown lazy on bland, processed foods. Here's the traditional use. A handful of fresh, intensely bitter greens was eaten at the start of a meal, specifically with rich, fatty meats, to ensure perfect digestion and prevent the stagnation that breeds disease. We have bred the bitterness out of our food and replaced it with sweetness, and our livers are stagnant, congested, and crying out for the commanded cleanse. Number 11, hyssop, the biblical antiseptic brush. King David, in his cry for mercy in Psalm 51, wails, "Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean." This wasn't a poetic metaphor for a random shrub. Hyssop was the brush used to paint the lamb's blood on the doorposts in Egypt. It was a tool of protection, and the essential oil of hyssop is a chemical weapon against pathogens. It contains carvacrol and thymol, the same potent antimicrobial compounds found in oregano and thyme. Modern lab studies have demonstrated that hyssop possesses genuine antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal properties, and has even shown the ability to inhibit the replication of the herpes simplex virus. The plant itself is a humble woody shrub with small, aromatic leaves that release a pungent, medicinal scent when crushed between your palms. Here's the traditional use. A bundle of fresh hyssop was dipped in water and used to physically scrub skin lesions. Or a tea was brewed from the leaves and flowers to fight deep chest infections and break up mucus. Think of it as the antiseptic scrub of the ancient temple, a physical cleanser with a spiritual echo, capable of purifying both the body and, as David knew, the soul. Number 10, barley, the beta-glucan super grain. This was the grain of the common people, the food that Ruth gleaned in the fields of Boaz, and the bread that Jesus multiplied to feed the 5,000. It wasn't a second-rate wheat. Barley is, nutritionally speaking, superior in a very specific, life-saving way. It contains the highest concentration of beta-glucan of any grain on Earth. Beta-glucan is a soluble fiber that forms a gel in your gut, and clinical trials have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that it actively lowers LDL cholesterol and stabilizes blood sugar by slowing the absorption of glucose into your bloodstream. It has a significantly lower glycemic index than wheat or rice. It provides sustained, rock-steady energy. The grains themselves are plump and chewy, with a nutty, earthy flavor that fills you up and keeps you full for hours, not minutes. Here's the traditional use. Barley was soaked and boiled into a thick, hearty porridge or added to stews, providing a dense, slow-burning fuel for long days of manual labor. Think of it as a sponge for metabolic toxins, gently scrubbing your arteries and smoothing out your blood sugar roller coaster with every spoonful. Number 9, moringa, the tree of life. While not native to Israel, moringa is deeply embedded in the biblical lands and adjacent ancient cultures. And Egyptian texts document its use for skin disease, infection, and even as a water purifier. It is called the tree of life, and the nutritional data on the dried leaf is so extreme it sounds fabricated. Gram for gram, ounce for ounce. Moringa leaves contain 7 times the vitamin C of oranges, 4 times the calcium of milk, and 2 times the protein of yogurt. It's a complete, whole food multivitamin grown on a branch. And the genuine healing power comes from its isothiocyanates, specifically moringin and moringanine, which powerfully combat inflammation and may help regulate blood sugar. The leaves are small, delicate, and when dried, they crumble into a fine, emerald green powder that smells faintly of fresh-cut grass and green tea. Here's the traditional use. The dried leaves were ground into a fine powder and stirred into water or food, acting as a daily insurance policy against malnutrition and a treatment for inflammatory conditions. Think of it as the emergency room in your backyard that's been there all along, just waiting for you to remember it exists. Number 8, figs, the king's poultice. In the book of 2 Kings, King Hezekiah was sick unto death. A terrible boil threatened his life. The prophet Isaiah ordered a poultice of figs to be laid upon the boil, and the king recovered. This story has fascinated scientists for centuries because it implies an antibiotic and wound-healing power that goes far beyond simple fruit. The fig contains a cocktail of healing agents. It's rich in fichin, a proteolytic enzyme that literally digests dead and decaying tissue, debriding a wound gently and effectively. It also contains psoralen and benzaldehyde, compounds with documented antimicrobial properties. A ripe fig, soft and warm from the sun, splits open to reveal a complex interior of seeds and flesh. And it was this very substance that was pressed against the king's infected wound. Here's the traditional use. A dried fig was soaked, split open, and laid directly on an infected wound, boil, or abscess, drawing out the infection and speeding the growth of new, healthy tissue. We have burn units and surgical debridement. They had figs. And the mechanism, the enzymatic destruction of necrotic tissue, is the exact same principle. Think of it as a surgical enzyme mask, drawn from a tree prescribed by a prophet. Number 7, pomegranate, the arterial plaque scrubber. This is listed in Deuteronomy 8 as one of the 7 blessed species of the Promised Land. A fruit so sacred its image was woven into the hem of the high priest's robe. The pomegranate is not a simple fruit. It is a reservoir of a unique class of polyphenols called punicalagins, which break down in your gut into urolithins. These compounds have demonstrated profound anti-inflammatory and potential anti-cancer effects. But the crown jewel of pomegranate research is cardiovascular. A landmark clinical trial found that patients with severe coronary artery disease who drank pomegranate juice daily experienced a significant improvement in blood flow and, in some cases, a measurable reduction in arterial plaque thickness. It doesn't just prevent heart disease, it may actively reverse it. The fruit itself is a leathery, crown-topped orb, and cracking it open reveals a chamber of ruby-red arils that burst with tart, sweet juice. Here's the traditional use. The entire fruit, including the bitter, astringent rind, was used. The rind was dried and made into a tea to stop diarrhea, expel parasites, and soothe an inflamed gut. Think of it as a chemical scrub brush for your endothelium, the inner lining of your arteries, polishing away the damage of the modern diet. Number 6, garlic, the pyramid builder's steroid. In Numbers 11:5, the Israelites are wandering in the desert and they cry out, remembering the fish, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic they ate for free in Egypt. They were slaves, but they ate garlic. And the Egyptian pyramid builders were fed garlic as a ration to give them endurance and prevent disease. This wasn't superstition. This was the ancient world's performance-enhancing drug. Garlic's power lies in allicin, a sulfur compound that is released when the clove is crushed. Allicin is a broad-spectrum antimicrobial, active against bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. It's a one-bulb pharmacy, and the clinical evidence is staggering. Regular garlic consumption has been shown to reduce the frequency and severity of colds and flu by over 60% in some studies. It also demonstrably lowers blood pressure and reduces LDL cholesterol. The sharp, Pungent aroma that fills the kitchen when you press a clove under the flat of your knife is the smell of allicin coming to life. Here's the traditional use. A raw clove was crushed, allowed to sit for 10 minutes to allow the allicin to bloom, and then swallowed with water, or mashed into a paste with olive oil and applied to a fungal skin infection. Think of it as the original performance-enhancing antibiotic, grown in the dirt, capable of fighting infection and boosting your cardiovascular output simultaneously. Number 5, spikenard, the sacred stress reset. When Mary of Bethany broke her alabaster box of spikenard and anointed the feet of Jesus, the fragrance filled the whole house. Judas objected to the waste, but that oil was worth a year's wages. It was an extravagant act of worship, but it was also an act that understood the profound neurological power of this plant. Spikenard is not just a perfume, it is a powerful nervine and sedative. Modern research has demonstrated that spikenard essential oil has a measurable effect on the central nervous system, reducing stress, promoting deep sleep, and acting as a natural tranquilizer without the addictive, destructive side effects of pharmaceuticals. It grounds a frazzled nervous system. The oil itself is thick, amber-colored, and carries an earthy, woody, deeply grounding scent that seems to pull you down into your body. Here's the traditional use. The oil was applied to the pulse points, the temples, and the soles of the feet, allowing the lipophilic compounds to absorb through the skin and directly calm the limbic system of the brain. Think of it as a liquid off switch for a racing mind, a gift so powerful it was reserved for the feet of the Messiah. Number 4, raw honey, the immortal wound healer. The phrase, "a land flowing with milk and honey," appears in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, and Jeremiah. It wasn't a poetic accident, it was a nutritional promise. And the honey of the Bible was not the clear, heated, filtered syrup in a plastic bear. It was raw, unfiltered honey, thick with pollen, propolis, and living enzymes. This substance is so antimicrobial that edible medicinal honey has been found in 3,000-year-old Egyptian tombs. It doesn't spoil because it kills everything that tries to touch it. Modern clinical medicine has been forced to acknowledge this. Raw honey, specifically medical-grade varieties like Manuka, is now used in certified wound dressings in hospitals to kill antibiotic-resistant bacteria like MRSA. It works by producing a slow, steady release of hydrogen peroxide, maintaining a low pH, and deploying a bee-derived protein called defensin-1. A spoonful of genuine raw honey is opaque, almost solid, and carries the floral fingerprint of the specific blossoms the bees visited. A taste of the landscape itself. Here's the traditional use. A thick layer of raw, unfiltered honey was spread directly onto a burn, wound, or infected ulcer and covered. It simultaneously sterilizes the wound, reduces inflammation, and creates a moist, healing environment. A word of caution: never give raw honey to an infant under 1 year old, as their immature digestive systems cannot handle the botulism spores that can be present. Think of it as the immortal, self-sterilizing bandage that God designed to flow from a rock. Number 3, extra virgin olive oil, the liquid gold of the ancient world. Olive oil is mentioned over 140 times in the Bible. It was burned in the tabernacle lamps as a command from God. It anointed kings and priests. It was the fuel for the miraculous oil of Hanukkah. And it is, quite simply, the most pharmacologically perfect fat on the planet. Extra virgin, cold-pressed, unfiltered olive oil contains a compound called olecanthal. This single compound inhibits the COX-1 and COX-2 inflammation enzymes in your body in a manner that is strikingly similar to ibuprofen, but without the stomach lining damage. It is a natural anti-inflammatory that you can eat. The polyphenols in genuine olive oil also actively reduce the oxidation of LDL cholesterol, which is the actual mechanism that causes it to become sticky and clog your arteries. The Mediterranean diet, built on this oil, is the most heart-protective dietary pattern ever studied by modern science. When you taste a truly fresh, peppery extra virgin olive oil, that stinging sensation at the back of your throat is the olecanthal. A sign of its potency. Here's the traditional use. It was taken raw by the spoonful, used as a dressing for bitter herbs, and applied topically to skin and wounds to reduce bacterial infection and speed healing. Think of it as a liquid pharmaceutical pressed from a fruit. That lubricates your joints, protects your heart, and soothes your inflamed tissues with every golden drop. Number 2, pomegranate rind, the forgotten gut healer. I know we covered the fruit, but the rind deserves its own place on this countdown because the ancient world treated it as a completely separate and more potent medicine. While the arrows feed your heart, the rind heals your gut. Pomegranate rind contains an intensely astringent concentration of tannins, ellagic acid, and antimicrobial compounds. Traditional medicine across the biblical world used pomegranate rind tea as the primary remedy for severe, debilitating diarrhea, dysentery, intestinal parasites, and inflammatory gut conditions like what we now call Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. It doesn't just slow things down. It binds to the inflamed mucosal lining, forming a protective layer while the antimicrobial compounds go to work on the pathogens. The rind is tough, leathery, and deeply red, and when you dry it, it curls and hardens into pieces that look almost like fragments of pottery. But they hold a profound healing power. Here's the traditional use. The thick, leathery rind was sun-dried until it was rock-hard, then simmered in water for 20 minutes to create a dark, bitter, profoundly healing decoction. Sipped slowly, it can stop a bout of dysentery that would otherwise be fatal. Think of it as a cast for your intestines, a forgotten, bitter brew that holds the power to seal and heal a leaking gut. Number 1, bitter herbs and the fermented vinegar, the ultimate life-giving combination. This is the climax. This is the combination that reaches across the entire biblical narrative, from the Passover lamb to the crucifixion. The true number 1 superfood isn't a single item. It's the synergistic, God-ordained pairing of intensely bitter herbs with a living, unpasteurized vinegar, like the sour wine offered to Christ on the cross. The bitter herbs, as we discussed, trigger the bile dump, the digestive fire the liver cleanse. But when you steep those bitter roots and leaves in a raw, fermented vinegar, like apple cider vinegar with the mother, you create a tincture that is exponentially more powerful. The acetic acid in the vinegar acts as a solvent, pulling the medicinal alkaloids and minerals out of the plant material and making them instantly bioavailable. This combination is a metabolic detonator. It wakes up a sluggish pancreas. It acidifies a stomach that has lost its ability to digest protein, and it scrubs the liver. The liquid itself turns a dark, murky brown, and the smell is sharp, sour, and earthy, the scent of transformation in a jar. Here's the traditional use. A handful of dandelion root, gentian, and chicory was chopped and submerged in raw vinegar for a full lunar cycle. A tablespoon of this dark, potent liquid was taken before meals, especially heavy meals of meat and fat. It ensures nothing rots, everything digests, and every nutrient is absorbed. We chase digestive enzymes and acid reflux pills, numbing the symptoms while the root cause, a weak, alkaline stomach and a congested liver, festers underneath. Think of this combination as the master key to the body's engine room. It's the bitter, sharp, life-giving jolt that turns your digestion back on, reclaiming the ancient wisdom that true health doesn't come from suppressing symptoms. It comes from kindling a fire in your gut so powerful that disease cannot take root.